SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
At Community Bank, we're more than a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors and trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've helped families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. We're dedicated to your success every step of the way. Community Bank, member FDIC.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man. Way past 21.
Welcome to the start of a new week, Monday morning. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. A golden weekend for the United States hockey team over Canada. Take that, you Canucks. A news-heavy weekend. Not a great basketball weekend for most in Mississippi. Another really good baseball weekend. We have much to discuss with you on this Monday morning as we start a new week. And we remind you that if you put away those winter coats and the gloves and the scarves, you may want to pull them out for at least one more day. Brr this morning. Temperatures in the 20s in North Mississippi, 30s across much of the state. The wind is blowing out of the northwest, maybe not right this second, but it's going to. Spent about half the day yesterday standing on a soccer field in Tupelo, and brother, it was cold. I mean cold with the wind kind of whipping across there at Ballard Park. Great to be with you. Love to hear from you. C Spire text line is open, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. This tax season, C Spire is helping you stretch your refund and still get the devices you want. Right now, new and current customers can get 3 free devices plus 100 gigs of data for just $100. There's more to see at cspire.com. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning, RC. Yeah, the Canadians, man, there may be some emergency room ODs on maple syrup after the butt kicking the Americans put on them. But what a weekend for American hockey. Women took the gold, men took the gold. And, you know, the total medal count, gold-wise, the U.S., come in second?
Came in second in both gold and total medals, and it was the most successful United States Winter Olympics ever in this, the 25th Winter Olympiad.
Very impressive, man. Like I said, I kept it kind of on constantly for pretty much the duration. Learned a lot about some of the sports that I had no idea even existed on snow.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, just some of the different events that had been added over the many years, so you kind of forget about some of them as you go. But I thought they did a great job of covering everything, too. And some of the replay in this year's Olympiad was really cool because I learned a lot about some of the nuance to getting down that hill the fastest.
I think we ought to put either a set of skis or a snowboard on your feet and see how fast you can get down one of those hills.
I used to be okay with the snowboard. No problem about breaking my neck, pretty regular when I was doing it too. So not the greatest, but I could get going pretty quick and then figure out how to stop. That was always the fun part.
I might could help you if you were on skis. I mean, it's pizza and French fries, right? On skis. Those are your start and stop mechanisms.
I never wanted
I can't
to
help you on the snowboard.
Yeah, I picked it up in college, and Bobby Kelty was one of our players. I love Bobby, and he was a West Coast guy, and he broke his back skiing in the holidays, so we didn't have him for like 2 or 3 months until about SEC play, and thank goodness we had him. But So I learned, you might want to not do the skiing. And Bobby was like, oh, yeah, man, you got to snowboard if you're going to do it. So that's what I picked up. Always enjoyed it, but hadn't been in a while.
Yeah.
The last place I did it was on Ober Mountain in Gatlinburg as the fake ice was literally melting, and it was just it was like a highlight, for skiing.
No, we're going to steer clear of Ober Mountain, of Ober Gatlinburg for the slopes.
That was not the best slope I'd been on.
It is cold today. Feels like you could be skiing right now. Abundant sunshine today in Fulton, but a high of just 40 degrees with winds out of the north-northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Kind of the southern part of the Delta, Rolling Fork. You've got sunny skies, 48 degrees, 10 to 15 out of the north-northwest for you as well. Pretty similar in Laurel, although a little windier. Sunny and 51 today in Laurel. North-northwest winds at 10 to 20 miles an hour. And down in southwest Mississippi and Centerville, mainly sunny sky, 54 degrees, 10 to 15 miles per hour out of the north. Tomorrow it begins to warm up a little bit. You've got your television on this morning. You were seeing some of the pictures from the northeast with Winter Storm Hernando. Just copious amounts of snow up and down the eastern seaboard from really just north of Washington, D.C., all the way up into Connecticut, and I don't know, maybe it's going farther up into Maine. Already 8,300 flight delays and over 10,000 flights canceled. We woke up Saturday morning, and Jane told me she was supposed to be going to New York for market. She's like, I'm worried about the storm. I was like, they're getting 1.5 feet of snow. What are you worried about? Just cancel your flight and move on. And she's like, yeah, I need to not go. It's not going to work out. And then American Airlines canceled it for her. So nothing to worry about there. Birthdays today. On this day in 1685, George Friedrich Handel was born, the German-British Baroque composer. That's not your thing. Perhaps you recognize one of his works, the Messiah, that includes the Hallelujah chorus in it. Handel, one of the all-time great composers. Samuel Pepys was born on this day in 1633, the English diarist and naval administrator whose detailed diary is a key historical source on 17th century life, including the Great Fire of London. Meyer Amschel Rothschild was born on this day in 1744, the German banker and founder of the Rothschild banking dynasty. One of the most influential families financially in history. W.E.B. Du Bois was born on this day in 1868, the American sociologist, historian, civil rights activist, and co-founder of the NAACP, a pioneering figure in African-American studies and activism. Man, how about this double-double? Victor Fleming was born today in 1889. Perhaps that is a name you know, perhaps it is not. He was a film director. He was the director of both The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind, and get this, both of those films debuted in 1939.
Pretty busy year, yeah.
I mean, Victor, did you ever toy with, spreading those two out just a little bit?
He's like, I want to have twins here. Yeah, let's get this over with.
I'm going to have a really busy year. We're going to release these two films, and I'm never going to work again.
I mean, if you're going to put out Gone with the Wind and the other there,
and The Wizard?
The Wizard, yeah. I mean, you don't really have to do much after that, I would imagine.
I would think. Kristen Davis, born in 1965. She played Charlotte York in Sex and the City.
She's just as pretty in person. You run into celebs sometimes that don't really look like they do, but had lunch across the table from her years and years ago when she was like on the top of her game. Looked absolutely just like she did on TV. And beautiful, sweet, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Always was a fan of her after that.
Josh Gad was born in 1981. He's an actor, a comedian, a writer, and a voiceover artist, including the voice of Olaf in the animated movie Frozen. He starred in Book of Mormon and appeared in Beauty and the Beast. And finally, Dakota Fanning, born on this day in 1994. She was a child star, I Am Sam, War of the Worlds, and the Twilight Saga. Give you a couple of things that happened on this day in history, and then we will get some news headlines coming up after the break. We've got a fun sports update for you coming up about half an hour from right now, brought to you by Pearl River Resort. On this day in 303, so we're talking 303 AD, Roman Emperor Diocletian orders the destruction of the Christian church in Nicomedia, marking the start of the Diocletianic persecution, one of the most severe crackdowns on Christianity in the Roman Empire. So this is roughly 300 years after the crucifixion of Jesus. And in 1455, Johann Gutenberg's printing of the Gutenberg Bible, the first major book printed using movable type in the West, revolutionized publishing and spreading knowledge during the Renaissance. We're back with you right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Track.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important.
Huge news. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
You know, the Washington Post fired a bunch of people recently. A bunch of them were on sports writers, and there was all kinds of gnashing of teeth. This guy, Barry Svrluga.
By a vowel, huh?
How do you pronounce that name? Svrluga.
Yeah, need some more vowels.
So his final story from the Olympics and his time at the Washington Post, I was going to click on it and read it. I did click on it. I was going to read it. Really, really good quote to promote the article in the Post on X. Only it's behind a paywall.
Nice.
So
classy.
I'll give you the quote regardless. This was about the, I don't even know who it was from. One of the United States hockey team members. There's whiskey drinkers and milk drinkers, and we've got a lot of whiskey drinkers on this team.
Yeah. That's how you win, baby.
Pretty good quote right there.
I like that.
Regardless of how you feel about milk or whiskey, pretty strong quote.
Yeah, and don't mix them. Yeah.
Wait, aren't there a lot of people that do that at Christmas?
I don't know, man.
The milk punch stuff?
Ooh, I can't drink it. Can't do it. I'm not a whiskey and milk guy.
On this day in 1540, Spanish explorer Francisco Vasquez de Coronado sets out for Mexico on an expedition in search of the legendary 7 cities of Cibola, gold-rich cities, exploring much of the American Southwest and discovering sites like the Grand Canyon. No gold was found, but the discovery of the Grand Canyon, a pretty good runner-up prize.
Yeah, you think when he's probably walking across, the Southwest, he was like, hey, this is where we're going to put Area 51. This will be the little alien over here. There'll be some ski resorts. But really the coolest story is how it all became with Alvar Nunez Cabeza de Vaca. He was one of the Cortez people, got shipwrecked and wandered all over Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas, and then the Southwest. And that's where the story came from. And then they finally rescued him, and then they sent out Coronado to go find all the stuff. But Cabeza de Vaca, if you haven't ever read his work, I've studied him extensively. What a dude, man. I mean, think they're just wandering around Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Mexico. Then they go, yeah, let's go find this guy.
You think they sent somebody ahead to kind of scout out as they were walking, and somebody was like, hey, you're going to want to stop up there. There's a big ditch.
Big rib up here.
Coronado striding up. He goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't want to fall off in this. I think we'll call it the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
I don't know that he named it.
We were talking about that last week, the explorers, and those guys don't last very long. Usually 40 years maybe is what their, lifespan is.
Yeah.
But what they saw during those 40 years, second to none.
1836, today is the day the siege of the Alamo began in San Antone. Mexican forces under General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. Sorry, let me get my vowels right. Surround the Mexican defenders. It became a legendary symbol of resistance in the Texas Revolution. Perhaps you've heard the phrase, "Remember the Alamo!"
Hey, and also, Santa Anna had a wooden leg, lost it in that battle, one of the battles, and then it was here in the U.S. for many, many, many decades till it was finally returned to Mexico, his wooden leg.
Sure, he was pleased to have it back.
Yeah, he was long gone after that.
Yeah, they may have put it in his casket. Let's see. 1861, President-elect Abraham Lincoln arrived secretly in Washington, D.C. under heavy security after Detective Alan Pinkerton uncovered an assassination plot amid rising tensions before the Civil War. 1945, during the Battle of Iwo Jima, Marines capture Mount Suribachi and they raise the American flag. The second larger raising captured in Joe Rosenthal's iconic Pulitzer Prize-winning photograph. It is one of the most famous, if not the most famous, images of war ever. In 1954, the first mass inoculation against polio, not talking about Ralph Lauren here, against polio, using Jonas Salk's vaccine takes place in Pittsburgh. It was a major step toward eradicating the disease that had crippled millions. And finally, it was on this day in 1991 when French forces crossed into Iraq officially, or unofficially, I suppose, beginning the ground phase of the Persian Gulf War. It was Operation Desert Storm. That was after weeks of the air campaign leading to the liberation of Kuwait. News headlines for you this morning. The cyber attack that happened last week at the University of Mississippi Medical Center is forcing UMMC to keep its clinics closed and cancel all elective procedures today and tomorrow. On social media, UMMC posted medical center teams continue to respond to the impact of our recent cyber attacks alongside federal and state agencies and experts in cybersecurity. Clinics statewide will be closed Monday and Tuesday, and elective procedures on those days are canceled. Appointments will be rescheduled when possible. The update did note that UMMC's hospitals and emergency departments in Jackson, Grenada, Madison County, and Holmes County will remain open. From Dr. Luann Woodward, we apologize for this continued disruption of access to our services. Her teams are working hard to keep providing exceptional service to their patients and families. She said our care teams continue to provide exceptional service. I know this intrusion into our system has negatively impacted some of our patients, but please know that we are using every resource at our disposal to resolve this issue in a safe and effective manner. It was Thursday morning of last week. We were on the air when we first got the news that a cyber attack had potentially happened, and that became more and more true. It was an attack on the record system that was shut down, along with other systems. UMMC officials said the hackers have communicated with us, and they are working with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, among other partners, to restore networks. They have yet to be able to determine whether patient records have been accessed. UMMC is one of Mississippi's largest healthcare providers, operating 7 hospitals, including the state's largest in Jackson, 35 clinics, and more than 200 telehealth sites statewide. Whew, bad deal. Farmers across the country will soon be able to apply for the USDA's bridge payments. The Farmer Bridge Assistant Program, or the FBA, was first announced back in December, going to provide $11 billion in one-time payments to row crop producers in response to temporary trade market disruptions and increased production costs. The enrollment period starts today, and it goes through April 17th. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins explained that they've simplified and streamlined the application process for the program to ensure producers receive the financial assistance they need as quickly as possible. The bridge payments are authorized under the Commodity Credit Corporation Charter Act, and they are being administered by the Farm Service Agency, the FSA. Bridge payments are intended in part to aid farmers until investments set in from the One Big Beautiful Bill, including reference prices, which are set to increase between 10 and 21% for major covered commodities, but those will not reach eligible farmers until October 1st. You know about the agriculture community in Mississippi. It's the largest industry here in the Magnolia State. Generates $9.5 billion annually, employs nearly 12% of the state's workforce, either directly or indirectly. There are approximately 31,000 farms covering 10 million acres in Mississippi. The impacts of the partial government shutdown on Homeland Security funding are beginning to be felt at airports nationwide. Officials at the Jackson Medgar Wiley Evers International Airport said Sunday morning that DHS had informed them that the TSA is suspending its pre-check and global entry programs, which both streamline the security process for some flyers. The post on social media said the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has suspended TSA pre-check and global entry due to the partial DHS shutdown. Longer security wait times may occur. Jackson was one of a number of airports that posted the message from DHS online. Shortly thereafter, though, DHS said that pre-check would remain operational for the time being. It was not immediately clear what global entry would look like. We'll see if they get DHS funded. They're fighting about that in Congress right now. The elephants and the donkeys do not currently agree on how that should be funded. Good to be with you this morning. Our sports update, brought to you by Pearl River Resort, is coming up next. Glad to be with you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net.
Judy in the sky.
From the Seabrook State. Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Keep everything in the farm. Upset in every way.
And it's Wierenski. Now Jack Hughes pokes it around the car. United States with numbers. Walk across it comes. Jack Hughes wins it. The golden goal for the United States. For the first time since the 1980 miracle, the United States takes the gold. Jack Hughes beating Jordan Bennington. Watch up behind the net.
It's time for your morning sports update, brought to you by Pearl River Resort, online at pearlriverresort.com, your home for family fun, casino thrills, and live entertainment. You could hear it in the background. It sounded like this. For the first time since the Miracle on Ice in 1980, Team USA is golden again. The United States defeated Canada 2-1 in overtime in the 2026 Olympic men's hockey final, remaining and reclaiming the top spot on the podium in a game that felt destined for an instant classic status. Both teams entered undefeated through preliminary and knockout play, setting up a rematch of last year's Four Nations face-off title game. Canada won that one in overtime. This time the Americans flipped the script. Following goals by Team USA's Matt Boldy and Canada's Cale Makar in regulation, and a slew of incredible saves by Team USA's Connor Hellebuck and Canada's Jordan Bennington. The game went to overtime. In that extra session, Jack Hughes took a pass from Zach Werenski and buried it past Bennington, giving the U.S. a 2-1 victory in its first gold medal since Lake Placid. And then maybe the most emotional part, the United States men's hockey team wanted to share its gold medal win as much with those who weren't on the ice as those who were. In the immediate celebration of the Americans' thrilling win, Austin Matthews, Zach Werenski, and Matthew Tkachuk skated around the ice with the number 13 jersey of the late Johnny Gaudreau. Then as Team USA posed for a photo, the players brought Gaudreau's children, Noah and Johnny Jr., onto the ice as part of the group. Gaudreau, at 31, along with his younger brother Matthew, were killed in 2024 when they were struck by an SUV while riding bicycles. Johnny Gaudreau would have been a candidate to make this Olympic team, especially after his commitment to the U.S. program and attending the World Championships in the spring before his death. He was a beloved teammate and a gifted playmaker who was nearly a point-per-game player over the 763 games in his career. Team USA hung his jersey in the locker room for each game during the Olympic tournament as a tribute. Something that started during the Four Nations face-off last year. Johnny Gaudreau's widow, Meredith, was in the stands at the gold medal game along with his parents, Guy and Jane. It was a beautiful celebration at the end of a great run for the U.S. Olympic men's hockey team in Milan, and they are golden for the third time ever. First it was Squaw Valley back in 1960, then in 1980 at Lake Placid, and now in 2026 in Milan. What a cool way to start Sunday morning yesterday. Good work by the American hockey team. Patriotism abounding.
The movie is ensuing.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. The call that you heard there was really, really good. It was maybe even perfect. The problem is a call for an Olympic gold. Every call for an American Olympic gold for as long as hockey is played in the Olympics will be second to the call that was issued by Al Michaels when he asked and answered that question, do you believe in miracles? Yes, some 46 years ago. All right, to the hardwood we go. From the ice to the hardwood. Basketball over the weekend. Ole Miss got the basketball Saturday started in Oxford, hosting the 12th-ranked Florida Gators. Florida had won 6 in a row coming in. Ole Miss had lost 8 in a row. Both of those streaks continued. Florida won at 94-75, a 19-point victory for the Gators, who sit atop the SEC basketball standings at 12-2. Alex Condon led the way for a quintet of Gators in double figures, 24 points for him. Ole Miss was once again led in scoring by Malik Dia. He played well, 24 points, 6 rebounds in the game. But the Gators, especially the Gators front court, just too much for Ole Miss on Saturday. The Rebels back in action on Wednesday night when they host LSU. Mississippi State hit the road on Saturday. They had won 2 games in a row, and they were facing a team that was at the bottom of the SEC standings in South Carolina. But South Carolina got the win on Saturday, 97-89. The Gamecocks led it by 7 at the half. They outscored Mississippi State by 1 in the second half. Leading scorer for Mississippi State was Quincy Ballard with 15 points on 6 of 8 shooting. Josh Hubbard had 13. So did Jaden Epps in the ballgame. Sergei Matsura had 10 points off the bench, but the Gamecocks too much. As they get the win to move to 3-11 in the SEC, Mississippi State falls to 5-9 in conference play. Rest of the scores from the SEC on Saturday: Tennessee 69-65 in a Volunteer State rivalry game over Vanderbilt. Arkansas beat Missouri 94-86 to move to 10-4 in conference play. Alabama, a 7-point win in Baton Rouge over LSU. The Crimson Tide now 10-4. LSU is 2-12. Georgia, a winner at home over Texas, 91-80. The Georgia Bulldogs moved to 7-7 in conference play. Texas A&M, 75-71 winner over Oklahoma. And Auburn eked one out against Kentucky, 75-74 on Saturday night on the Plains. So those are the SEC basketball scores from the weekend. Southern Miss basketball got a big win. They trailed by 18 to Old Dominion, came back and won the game to have a good Saturday for themselves. What about baseball from the weekend for Ole Miss? Well, it was 3 games and 3 wins. The Rebels hosted Missouri State over the weekend, got it started on Friday. Hunter Elliott was not at his best, and yet the Rebels still won 11-6. Ole Miss took the series win on Saturday with a 6-3 victory, and then got a late base hit from Braden Randall yesterday to drive in a run and win 3-2 and take the sweep. Ole Miss back in action on Tuesday afternoon against Southeast Missouri State, a 4 p.m. first pitch for that game. Mississippi State also stays perfect on the year. 3 games and 3 wins over Delaware. 9-2 on Friday in game 1 of the series. On Saturday afternoon, it took only 8 innings as the Bulldogs got a 10-0 victory. And yesterday finished off the sweep with a 7-3 win over the Blue Hens of Delaware. Bulldogs back at it on Tuesday afternoon when they host Austin Peay in Starkville. And Southern Miss hit the road. They were in Round Rock, Texas for the Round Rock Baseball Classic. Got started on Friday afternoon. Southern Miss beat Purdue 5-4 in Game 1 on Friday. On Saturday against 11th-ranked Oregon State, they picked up a 9-4 win. And then yesterday they closed out the Round Rock Classic with a 5-1 win over Baylor. So 3-0 on the weekend for the Golden Eagles. And they remain a one-loss team. Lost the season opener and have since won 6 in a row. What a good weekend for Southern Miss baseball. Good weekend all the way around. So Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss combined to go 9-0 on the weekend. Southern Miss next action is Tuesday night at home. They host Alabama at Pete Taylor Park, 6 o'clock first pitch for that ball game. And then next weekend we'll be back on the road when they head to Ruston, Louisiana to take on Louisiana Tech. That is a good start to the baseball season, Lance, for all 3 of the Magnolia State Division I baseball teams.
Yes, I know a lot of folks, fans of all of those teams, are likely extremely happy with that, given the way the basketball has gone for the last couple of months.
Yeah,
baseball, all 3 teams look really, really good. Excited about the potential because when you have 3 great baseball teams in Mississippi between Southern Miss, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, just makes it better. It really does. Makes the season better. I love it when they're all 3 really good.
Yeah. So you had Southern Miss in Texas this past weekend. This coming weekend, Mississippi State will be in Arlington. They play Arizona State on Friday morning, Virginia Tech on Saturday afternoon, and UCLA on Sunday afternoon. That is a UCLA team that's off to a good start. And Ole Miss is headed to Houston. They're playing in the Astros Stadium. They've got games against Baylor on Friday afternoon, Ohio State on Saturday morning, and then they will close it out with the national runner-up from a year ago on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, Ole Miss and Coastal Carolina. So you can check all that out. A lot of Texas flavor to the baseball in the first couple of weeks of the season. Got your Mississippi Lottery update coming up next. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Monday morning with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Appreciate you joining us. The C Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395. Your Mississippi Lottery update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery, online at mslottery.com. There was no jackpot winner for Powerball over the weekend, but a ticket purchased at Baldwin Discount Tobacco in Baldwin, Mississippi, matched 4 of the 5 white balls plus the Powerball in the double play drawing to win $50,000. This player added the $1 double play option to their Powerball ticket for a chance at a second drawing of numbers, and they won big. The estimated jackpot for tonight's Powerball drawing, $203 million, with a cash value of almost $95 million. The numbers from Saturday night, 27, 28, 36, 48, 49. The Powerball was 21, and the Power Play multiplier was 4. Mega Millions continues to grow. On Friday night, the drawing did not yield any winners, and so tonight, tomorrow night's drawing, Tuesday night, up to $438 million. The cash value, $203,100,000. Last week, the lottery claims office paid out $389,000, while retailers distributed nearly $5.2 million to winners all across the state of Mississippi. A lot of winners on scratch-offs out there as well. You've got that new millionaire $1 million a year for life game that started last night with the Mississippi Lottery as well. For all the information, visit mslottery.com or grab the Mississippi Lottery app, available to you in the App Store and in Google Play. It is free, and there's a lot of information there. So check it out. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. Good to be with you this morning. C Spire text line. Hey, Lance, remind Richard it's more than just SEC here, especially in baseball. You mean like Southern Miss also? Whose scores that I gave you? Said the kid USM faced from Oregon State is supposed to be a late first round, early second round pick.
Oregon State's usually got a bunch of players, man. Always.
You know,
they're all over the MLB.
Told you they were the 11th ranked team in the country, and it was a really, really good win for Southern Miss over the weekend. Off to a 6-1 start.
They have played some very good teams, but the Santa Barbara kid, then opening weekend, and then the Oregon State kid. You're talking about two guys they faced in 6 or 7 games that are top first rounders. I mean, It's the way you start your season there.
Yeah, really, really good. And it's kind of what we thought it was going to be going into the season. This was a Southern Miss team that a lot of people thought highly of. D1 Baseball had them in their preseason top 25, and they ought to be moving on up in those rankings. All right. State Representative Kevin Horan going to join us about half an hour from right now, maybe a touch longer than that. Looking forward to visit with him. He was in the committee meeting last week where they talked about the issues related to the ABC in Mississippi, the Alcohol and Beverage Commission, and alcohol beverage control. Anyway, we'll talk with him about what he learned, what's going on, and if there's anything that made sense. His quote out of that committee hearing was my favorite out of everything that was said, or at least everything that I read that was said. They were talking about retailers employing a will call system where they come and they pick up their product and get it back to their stores or their restaurants or the casinos. And the response was that we don't really have enough doors and loading bays to use that. And Kevin Horan said, I got some guys that can put in some doors. To which they responded, we don't actually have room for any more doors. So We will get the latest on that from Kevin Horan coming up, and also check in on what's going on in the House of Representatives this week. He's chair of Judiciary B, or Judd B, as it is as called. And, of course, J.T. Mitchell will join us later in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll get the latest from him on the cyber attack fallout at UMMC, plus all the other news from Mississippi from over the weekend and looking ahead to this week. That is all on the way. A fast first hour in the books with you on this Monday morning. Chilly start to the day all across the state of Mississippi. North Mississippi checking in the upper 20s to start the day. 30s across much of the state. Cap City, 33 degrees right now as we start this Monday, the 23rd of February. We'll take a timeout. We got the news on the way. The SuperTalk Mississippi news team gets you up to date, plus Fox News with the national stories. And then we are back for the 7 o'clock hour. MRC starting off the week with you right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us.
The sweetest thing you ever seen. The dog is howling. And the hound.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
And now, Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Because I'm standing on top of the world. One summer day, she went away. She gone and left me. She gone and stayed. But now she gone. And I'll know
7 o'clock hour mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. At Community Bank, we're here for every part of your financial journey. Looking to manage your personal finances? Our banking services make it simple, secure, and tailored to you. Ready to grow your business? We offer expert guidance and custom solutions to help your business thrive. Dreaming of a new home? Our mortgage specialists are here to make the process seamless, all designed with you in mind. We're more than just a bank. We're your partner for life's biggest moments. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC, equal housing lender. And some of the video from the snowstorm in the Northeast. Whew. Out at Montauk, out on the far eastern end of Long Island, 20 inches of snow, 15 inches of snow in Central Park, in the heart of New York City, there in Manhattan. Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I don't know if Washington, D.C. has gotten much snow or not. I haven't seen. Looks like the top snowfall report comes from Freehold, New Jersey, at a little over 2 feet, and the snow is expected to continue until about 6 o'clock tonight. I think they've got a blizzard warning in effect until 6 o'clock tonight. So there are going to be some places that they get close to 3 feet of snow in the Northeast. You know, the ice that we got in North Mississippi caused considerable problems. And they've got some power outage related to this. But, man, 2-3 feet of snow, that is, and it's the wet, heavy snow, that's a different deal, too, in terms of getting around. New York City basically shut down today. I have to mention this. It's low-hanging fruit. You probably saw the story over the weekend. Mamdani was calling out to people, creating job opportunities for them in terms of shoveling snow. It was an emergency snow shoveling opportunity. You could come in and make $19 an hour, I think it was. And then after you worked 40 hours, it bumped up to like $30 an hour, give or take. All you had to do was bring 2 forms of photo ID and your Social Security card. to get signed up to shovel snow in New York.
You can't make his stuff up, Doug.
I mean, you literally cannot make it up.
What if they were going to pick some garbage up while they're at it?
Mamdani was getting pounded in a news conference yesterday. He was like, this is a federal statute. It's a long-standing deal. We had nothing to do with this. The greatest response I heard to that, or the greatest one that I saw, was like, okay, so we're back to picking and choosing which federal laws and statutes we follow. Because there's some federal laws where we're like, nope, not doing that. We will not cooperate with ICE. Well, you're going to have 2 forms of ID to get $19 an hour to shovel snow. You know, it's a federal statute, and there's nothing we can do about that. Got it. C-Spire text line is open to you, 601-879-4395. This tax season, C-Spire is helping you stretch your refund and still get the devices you want. Right now, new and current customers can get 3 free devices plus 100 gigs of data for just $100. It's all part of C-Spire's Ultimate Connect bundle. Any new iPhone or Samsung Galaxy for free, and a free smartwatch, and a tablet to go with it. So don't wait. There's more to see. Shop now at cspire.com or visit your local C-Spire store today. C-Spire, customer inspired. The news out of Mexico is no bueno. You may have seen some of this yesterday. A Mexican cartel leader was killed, and the cartel retaliated and is retaliating. The Mexican army killed the leader of Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the JNGC. His name is Nemesio Ruben Osguera Cervantes. His parents didn't like him. Gave him 4 names. We almost did that for one of our kids and then changed our minds at the last second. I mean, how do you feel? It's bad enough when you go by your middle name and you're not sure what to do with your first name and your middle initial and all those forms you fill out. What do you do when you have 4 names? Nemesio Ruben Osguera Cervantes. No wonder he just went by El Mencho. So they killed him, decapitating what had become Mexico's most powerful drug cartel. But that thrust part of the country of Mexico, the states in Mexico, into chaos. The drug lord was the Mexican government's biggest prize yet to show the Trump administration in its efforts to crack down on the cartels, and his death was met with a forceful reaction from the cartel. Cars burned out by cartel members, blocked roads at more than 250 points in 20 Mexican states, left smoke billowing in the air. Am I saying it right, Lance? It's Jalisco?
Yeah, Jalisco.
Okay. Jalisco's capital, Guadalajara, was turned into a ghost town Sunday night as civilians hunkered down. School was canceled in a number of Mexican states for today. Authorities in Jalisco, Michoacan, and Guanajuato.
Guanajuato.
I'm sorry?
Guanajuato.
We're not pronouncing G's anymore?
You don't with that one, yeah. That's just one of those, yeah. Guanajuato.
Okay. They reported at least 14 people dead, including 7 National Guard troops. So the drug lord was wounded in an operation to capture him on Sunday. About a 2-hour drive southwest of Guadalajara. And then he was being flown to Mexico City, where he would be detained, and I guess medical attention would be given to him. He died en route. And nobody's asking any questions about how he was alive when he got on the helicopter and he was dead when he got off. The state of Jalisco is the base of the cartel known for trafficking huge quantities of fentanyl and other drugs into the United States. All of that is awful. Here's where it gets really, really scary, though. There is a shelter-in-place order for Americans in Mexico right now. The Department of State issued a warning yesterday. In terms of locations, they said widespread, including Jalisco State. That's Puerto Vallarta, Chapala, and Guadalajara. Baja California State. That includes Tijuana, just to the immediate south of the California border. Quintana Roo State, which includes Cancun, Cozumel, Playa del Carmen, and Tulum. And then other areas. But you heard the major tourist destination areas all included. Due to ongoing security operations and related road blockages and criminal activity, U.S. citizens in the named locations should shelter in place until further notice. U.S. government staff at Consulate General Tijuana, all government staff in Guerrero, Michoacan, and Quintana Roo have been directed to shelter in place. All other government staff at Consulate General Monterrey have been directed to remain there. It says while no airports have been officially closed, roadblocks have impacted airline operation, with some domestic and international flights canceled in both Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta. Taxis and ride shares are suspended in Puerto Vallarta. Businesses have suspended operations. So if you had slipped off to Cancun or Cozumel or Puerto Vallarta for a honeymoon or a weekend getaway or just, hey, let's get out of this cold and go somewhere warm, you're trapped. Can you imagine what that feels like? Bad stuff. So for all those that were anti the United States helping Mexico get rid of the cartels, Trump has been adamant that Mexico has got to take back its country from the cartels. Worst fears coming to fruition. Back with you after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
He gets off on country music, cause disco left him cold. He's got young friends and a new wave, but he's just too friggin'
State Representative Kevin Horan, Chairman of House Judd B, will join us about 15 minutes from right now. Glad to be with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. This hour of the show is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. On Friday, the ruling came down from SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, striking down the tariffs that were put in place under IEEPA, the Emergency Powers Act that the president had used to put all of the tariffs in place. So this was Friday afternoon. 6-3 was the vote. Justices that ruled that the tariffs exceed the powers given to the president by Congress under a 1977 law providing him the authority to regulate commerce during national emergencies created by foreign threats. For basically the last year, people have questioned and have been waiting on this Supreme Court ruling, the president declaring national security threats based on the flow of fentanyl coming in from the southern border and the northern border, giving him the ability to levy tariffs against Mexico and Canada. Suggesting national security threats based on a trade imbalance with much of the rest of the world, specifically focused on China. And so the court said, no, this is an overreach of presidential power, and these tariffs cannot continue under this law, this Powers Act. So you had the majority opinion, and then you had a dissenting opinion that was written by Brett Kavanaugh. And in some ways, it laid out a roadmap for the Trump administration to continue with tariffs, but to go about it in a different way. He made a couple of pretty important points in his dissenting opinion, one of which, all right, well, what about all these tariffs that you've already collected, the $200 billion plus, and you've already got companies and entities that are suing to get the money back that they have paid, and he described that as quote, it was going to be a mess, close quote. He also talked about, what about the trade deals that have been put in place with nations around the world because of either actual tariffs or the threat of tariffs? The United States, whether you like tariffs or not, whether you've been affected by tariffs or not, is in a better place in terms of trade partnerships across the globe than it was a year ago. And Kavanaugh kind of explored the idea of, what are you going to do with those? Well, the Trump administration was ready for this. Clearly, they had some sense that the Supreme Court was not going to rule in the way that they hoped, where it would just kind of leave everything status quo. And Scott Bessent became the mouthpiece for the administration. And there are a lot of things that you can accuse this administration of. There are a lot of things that you can accuse cabinet members of. Not being smart is not something that you can accuse Scott Bessent of. The Treasury Secretary took to the podium on Friday evening and explained how nothing was going to change in terms of tariffs for the United States.
I would also like to take a moment to address today's Supreme Court ruling, and I would note that I did not change a single word in my speech post the ruling. President Trump will always put our national security and Americans first. And as I have said before, the president has multiple tools in his toolbox. Let's be clear about what today's ruling was and what it wasn't. Despite the misplaced gloating from Democrats, ill-informed media outlets, and the very people who gutted our industrial base, the court did not rule against President Trump's tariffs. 6 justices simply ruled that IEEPA authorities cannot be used to raise even $1 of revenue. This administration will invoke alternative legal authorities to replace the IEEPA tariffs. We will be leveraging Section 232 and Section 301 tariff authorities that have been validated through thousands of legal challenges. Treasury's estimates show that the use of Section 122 authority, combined with potentially enhanced Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, will result in virtually unchanged tariff revenue in 2026.
So they talked a lot about the tariff revenue that was collected in 2025, some $200+ billion. And that was on a prorated basis. What, 8 or 9 months out of the year? And Scott Bessent says that tariff revenue collected in 2026 will be virtually unchanged. Which means what? In the neighborhood of $300 billion, $350 billion in 2026. I am not going to pretend to tell you that I know what or understand what Sections 232 and Sections 301 are, or exactly what Section 122 authority is. I'm assuming Section 122 authority that we're discussing is the IEPA powers, the Executive Powers Act. And it's interesting the way that he described it. He said the ruling from the Supreme Court, 6 justices to 3, was that under IEPA, no revenue could be collected for the Treasury. It was not tariffs cannot be imposed. And that's probably an important distinction. But the question becomes, where do you go from here? Does that money, we're talking a second ago about, lawsuits to sue back for that money. Does this turn into the most complicated return and exchange policy in the history of the world? There are probably lots of problems with Amazon, but Amazon has the greatest return policy ever. And it varies from company to company. But generally speaking, if you get something from Amazon, you don't like it, it's broken, you change your mind, it doesn't fit, the color isn't right, you can send it back to them, no questions asked. And a lot of times with Amazon, they'll tell you to just keep the item and they'll send you another one. Because it costs so little to produce for them in the first place that dealing with the shipping cost, they'd rather just send you another one and not have to restock and all of those things. You go to some retail places. Some you've got 2 weeks to return an item. Some you've got 7 days to return an item. In some places you can return an item within 7 days and get a full refund. In some places you can return an item within 2 weeks and you can't get a cash refund or get it charged back to your card, but you can get store credit. A lot of different ways. Are we going to have to refund $200 billion in tariff, but then turn around and recharge it under a different act retroactively or a different code section? Or are we going to be able to say, no, it was legal for us to charge that at the time and you're not getting it back, but going forward, you're going to pay it under a different route? And then there was Trump himself, who got the ruling, said, we told you we're ready for this, and basically as a middle finger to the world, Lance, correct me, if you think it was something other than this, I am all ears. But he said, and oh, by the way, we're going to add another 10% globally. And then did he bump that to 15% yesterday?
I saw the 10%, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's, oh, you say we can't do this? Well, yeah, we can. We'll do it this way, not that way. And oh, by the way, just for good measure, here's another 10%. I mean, that feels very on brand for the president. Mornings of Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. State Representative Kevin Horan will join us coming up next. State of Mississippi is in the alcohol distribution business through the ABC at the state level. It is not working. Kevin Horan was in the committee meeting last week. We'll find out what he knows when we come back with you on MRC.
From the Seabrook.
Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day, all on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
He says, why am I short of attention? Got a short little span of attention, and all my nights are so long. Where's my
Good being with you on this Monday morning as we roll on Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Happy to welcome in our first guest this morning. He is State Representative Kevin Horan, represents District 34. That's parts of, I think, 4 different counties in North Mississippi. He's also chairman of the House Judiciary B Committee. Mr. Chairman, good morning.
Good morning to you, Richard. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I appreciate some of your time. I want us to rewind about a week, if we can, and go to that committee meeting with regard to the ABC conversation. I think the line that you had in there was my favorite of the entire thing, where you said, I've got some guys that can put in a door, and it sounded like that was not exactly what they were looking for. What can you tell us about being in that meeting, the response from the Department of Revenue, and what a mess we've got going on with ABC?
Well, Richard, winding it back a little bit further than last week, we kind of got started on this problem back when we trying to decide whether or not we were going to privatize the warehouse or keep the system in place that we have now. We ultimately, both chambers, Chairman Lamar and Chairman Harkins on the Senate, basically decided we were going to improve the system we have. But back then, we had a number of concerns about the way that it was being operated, and my understanding was we were doing things back then to correct the problem. But we've got a total mess, especially when we've got a warehouse full of a product we can't get to the package store owners who invested sometimes generationally. A lot of people have been involved in this for a long time. And you got a product sitting there that can't get to them. And I simply wanted to know why some of the things that we implemented, I thought we were going to do a will call system. Back then, they say it's not workable, but it seems to me that when we had some concerns back then about getting products out quicker when there was some type of systematic failure like this, and this hasn't been addressed, Richard.
So I've talked to some people that are somewhat involved with this, and they say that the current situation is kind of multi-pronged, that they've got issues with the conveyor belt system, that there are software issues, and that the backlog is almost unworkable, some 200,000 plus cases behind, and they're trying to play catch-up with an antiquated system. Is all of that accurate?
That's accurate, Richard, but the problem that we have is that we don't have an antiquated conveyor belt system. We don't have a conveyor belt system right now. It's completely taken out. I understand they were having problems with it, but the contractor that's involved in having a contract with DOR was either not prepared or not caring about the fact that they didn't have a plan in place when they took those conveyor belts out 8 months prior to the time that it's supposed to be transitioning to a new warehouse. And some of our committee members' concerns, Chairman Zuber included in that, is where we're going to be whenever we decide that we're going to make this move 8 to 10 months from now, and we're going to have a bigger problem for a longer period of time. And the answers that Commissioner Graham gave were just not acceptable, that we're going to be playing with this for the next 2 months. There's got to be a solution that could be a little more immediate, Richard. And it just seems to me that when you're talking about computer systems, things of that nature, we've dedicated a tremendous amount of money to make sure that this system works and we have a transition into the new warehouse. And it just doesn't seem to be that the contractor's prepared, and it doesn't sound like we're going to be moving forward on any type of action on the performance bond.
State Representative Kevin Horan is my guest. You'll forgive this question. I don't mean for it to be insulting, because I know you work in government, but it is rare to find a government entity that runs more effectively than a private entity. So why is the state of Mississippi in the alcohol distribution business instead of licensing this out to a company to handle it?
Well, Richard, that's a very good question. It's one that we toyed with, I think it was about 8 years ago, that Chairman Lamar, myself, and some other members on Ways and Means took a deep dive into this and basically came to the conclusion that the mechanism we had in place at the time, the transition may be a little bit more expensive than we thought it was going to be. But I agree with you. We're going to have to revisit the issue and see whether or not we're going to be able to just privatize it. We've got a warehouse that's going to be ready. says 8 months. I don't know if they're going to be ready to move in 8 months. Not after the committee meeting the other day. I don't know whether or not that time frame is accurate, but got $190 million invested in that. And liquor business is a big business in Mississippi, and the decision was made just to move forward with the system in place. And to be honest with you, Richard, we talked to a number of people on both sides of the issue, and I have to give credit to Chairman Lamar and Chairman Harkins. They a bunch of us sitting in the room talking about it, going over the numbers. It seemed to be, at that time, the right thing to do. And it still, to a certain extent, is because the system we have in place. But we need to probably look at whether or not we're just going to, moving forward, see what we can do since we got the new warehouse and see what happens when everything gets put in place.
So was the ultimate decision to keep this system in place revenue-based? I mean, is it revenue generated for the state of Mississippi, or is it power and control? What is it?
Well, I mean, if you look at purely at the numbers, it is a revenue generator for the state of Mississippi to operate it in its current form. But I don't believe that it's a political play in any way, shape, form, or fashion. It's been set up like this for a number of years, and it has generally worked okay up until just basically we had a outdated system that was we were going to have to put a lot of money into it, or we were going to have to privatize it and see how that worked. So that decision was made. But politically, it's not really a political thing. There's no power grab here. I know a lot of people may think that, but that's just not the way it is.
I think the thing that I'm having the most trouble with on this, and you're way more involved with it than I am and have got more information than I do, but you look around and you see grocery stores that operate on a daily basis, and there is a logistics and distribution setup that is in place, and they're able to get their product from their distribution center to their grocery stores. We see these global shipping companies that are able to get packages from, my house to the other side of the world within a few days. And yet we've got this warehouse full of booze and places that need and want to sell it and are paying for it, and they can't get it for months. And I'm just trying to understand, what the solution is here to make these people whole and keep these places in business.
I agree with you, Richard. The problem is, if you look at the statutory scheme that we have and the restrictions that we've placed on package stores over the year, what they can sell, when they can sell it, how they can sell it, hours of operation, things of that nature. They've been in the system for a long period of time, and they haven't been able to sell products that grocery stores can sell and things of that nature. But the issue, and I've talked with Chairman Zuber, has done a great job. I think he's anticipating doing a deep dive into the contract, looking at that, one in place. And I would not, doubt very seriously if we look at retooling something as far as the private enterprise getting back involved 100% and just contracting out. That creates its own problems. It would require some changes in the statutes that we have in place, but I think there's going to be some reconsideration as to how we get this done once we get in the new warehouse. I'm hopeful that we are. These are package stores that, as you well know, and vendors that have been, been dependent on a system they have have no control over.
Right.
And there's issues like, there's an editing situation. They want to edit orders. They want to get refunds back on money that they placed. They can't get their money back to live off of, and it's fundamentally unfair to these business owners that they're getting having to go through this. And I've talked to several senators, several House members about whether or not we may, and haven't talked to Chairman Lamar about it in depth, but there's a possibility that we revisit the issue, maybe not this session, but upcoming sessions.
So that's going to leave this in limbo for the time being, right?
Well, I'm not saying we're not going to do something to address the issue. There's been certain members want us to suspend some of the optional statutory schemes that have. I think can get the liquor, but I just don't believe that turning the apple cart over right now, unless it's going to be the way to handle this. But I'm hopeful that the answers that we get from Department of Revenue this week are going to be better than the ones that we got at the committee hearing, which was just unacceptable.
State Representative Kevin Horan, I appreciate your time this morning. Be safe on the road.
Thank you very much, Richard.
We'll talk to you soon. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Hill to Alligator. Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
When they play their music, that hard rock music, they like it with a lot of flash, but it's still that same old backbeat rhythm that really, really kicks them in the. They say the hard rock and roll is the beat, and from what I've seen, I believe them. Now the old one may be better.
Good to be with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Thanks for joining us. We welcome your messages on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. Joey the Trucker says an independent company could go in there and run that in the state of Mississippi, and it would work right. When you get all the other hands out of it, that's the problem. Talking about distribution of alcohol to retail locations, package stores, hotels, restaurants, casinos all across the state of Mississippi. I am told that currently the state-run ABC warehouse is 220,000 cases behind in terms of their distribution. We found out in that committee meeting last week that there was a hope that the backlog would be cut in half by sometime in March and that they would be caught up by May. Hope half or so by March, not a specific date in March, just the month, which has 30 days in it. 30 days, half September. 31 days in it. And then May, also kind of an ambiguous timeline. Meanwhile, businesses across Mississippi are dealing with empty shelves, not getting the product they've ordered. In some cases, reportedly paying for product that they are not receiving and they're not being able to get timely or refunds at all. And they are sitting there trying to figure out how they're going to stay open in the absence of revenue from the sale of their product. I said this last week, and I want to say this again. Because it's really easy to get caught up. Like, if you have feelings one way or the other about alcohol, like if you're a person that's kind of anti-alcohol, you might not care about this. Like, well, good. There's, less alcohol getting, okay, fine. Or if you're somebody that's pro-alcohol, you might think this is the single most important issue. We've got to get whiskey to the stores. Regardless of how you feel about alcohol, set that aside just for a second. And fill in ABC with LMNOP. We don't have to call this the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. We can just call it the Widget Commission. And in the Widget Commission, the state controls the sale of widgets. The state says, this is who can sell the widgets. This is when they can sell the widgets. This is who they can buy the widgets from that they are allowed to sell. These are the people that they cannot buy the widgets from. Not going to allow that in this state. And then on top of that, we're going to send you the widgets. You order them from us. You send us the money, and then we'll get them to you. And if we're behind on the day we tell you, that's your tough luck. We'll try to make it up at some point in the future. It's almost worse when you think about it as random widgets as opposed to specific product, where we're talking about bourbon, scotch, tequila, wine, vodka, cognac. Fill in the rest. So take the alcohol piece of it away, because I do understand that there are people that are not concerned about this because it's alcohol related, and that's fine. But when you talk about the regulation and the distribution of product for sale, you're like, what country are we living in? Never mind what state, what country? We profess to be purveyors of free market values and capitalism, and yet the state, in this case, the state of Mississippi, but it almost sounds like the state of the Soviet Union, is controlling the regulation, the distribution, and the rules regarding how, when, and who you can sell to. Now, the who, obviously, is you got to be over 21. So the who maybe is not the right piece of this. But we're talking about state-level oversight that is, boy, I hesitate to say the word I'm thinking. It sounds like communism. And then they're not doing a good job in the process of distributing it. Got to figure out a solution. Be it alcohol or widgets or anything else. This is a bad system that is not working. We're back with you right after this. 8 o'clock hour on the way.
Morning, Mississippi. You're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Richard on the radio, praying for another black domino. Oh, Lord, you gotta help me through these low down magnolia.
Appreciate you being with us on this Monday morning. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Mornings is presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, we're here every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community. Member FDIC. I received a message a few minutes ago with regard to this ABC conversation and the state running it versus it being privatized, that there were multiple times in the 2020 to 2022 time range that the House voted to privatize the warehouse and the distribution of spirits in Mississippi while generating the same revenue, and that the Senate did not go down that road. I have not gone back and looked at the voting records from those times independently, but I have no reason to believe that that's inaccurate. So I got to thinking during the break just a second ago, what's comparable to this? Thomas in Greenwood asked a question. He said, does the state handle medical marijuana the same? And I thought, well, that's a good question. And I think I know the answer to it, but let me check. And so I reached out to the owner of one of the legal medical marijuana retail locations that I know. I'm like, hey, do you get your product from the state or from individual growers? And then I laughed at myself and I said, and when I say individual growers, I'm not talking about somebody with a heat lamp in a closet. I'm talking about a licensed, regulated producer. And his response was, no, we buy from individual producers, but everything we buy is tested at the state level. Which makes sense, right? The state is the regulator of that industry, and so they put in processes that would allow them to make sure that the product that was legally available to those with a medical marijuana card is what it says it is. That it's not like the hemp products that you find in the gas station or the Delta variants that you find in the gas station that are susceptible to heat and it changes their chemical makeup and they've got formaldehyde and pesticides and all of those other things in them. No, they test them to make sure that the product is what the product purports to be. And so the state, in that scenario, is a safeguard against bad stuff getting out there to the consuming public. So we're only 4 years into the legalization of medical marijuana in Mississippi. And so there had to be a system that was put in place for the sale and the distribution of the product for those stores. So why didn't the state put in an ABC-like system for the distribution of medical-grade cannabis to retailers across the state of Mississippi? I mean, you've already got a model here with ABC. Why didn't you do it the same way? Because it doesn't work? Because it's a bad system? I mean, there is evidence that the legislature put in place of how to properly handle a system like that. But because it's the way we've been doing it for a long time, it's the way we'll just keep on doing it? It just doesn't make any sense at all. A lot of your messages on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. A leader once told me that hope is not a strategy. Running a business by committee is not going to work. They're going to have to give up the business or put one person in charge and let them make decisions quickly. We get one message that says they need to shut it down totally. Alcohol is nothing but the devil, from a person that was bound by alcohol for years. And I understand that situation. I understand that sentiment. That's the reason that I used the example before the break. Let's not make this about alcohol. Let's just call it widgets. It's about the system, not the product. And I'm going to keep saying that over and over and over. It's about the system that is in place. This is not an alcohol conversation. It is, because alcohol is the product, and you have alcohol retailers, many of which are flirting with having to go out of business because they cannot make the revenue they need to stay in operation. But it's the system that is the problem, not the product itself. I'm not debating morality with you here. We're debating and talking about a government-run regulatory and regulatory system and distribution process. Mike in Gulfport says, I don't drink anymore, but are these my tax dollars at work? Elect Democrats, lieutenant governors, get Democrat big government policies. Mississippi conservatives had a chance to elect a real conservative to lead. Okay. Derek in Greenwood says, follow the money. We have some people that are tying this to PBMs and say, please talk about PBMs with the same level of passion that you do the ABC. We've talked about PBMs a lot. I will tell you one thing I have learned in the last year and a half, and that is within the pharmacy community, owners of independent pharmacies are maybe the single most passionate group of people I've ever come across. And they're passionate about it because their livelihood is at stake. I applaud that level of passion. But we have to talk about more than just one issue on a daily basis. That would become a bit monotonous. Some might say that this conversation has become monotonous. I think it's an important conversation. Why is the state running this? It is a broken system. And you heard Representative Horan say just a second ago, we are hoping to have more answers from the Department of Revenue than we got last week. Did they go back to the drawing board? Have they come up with a way to fix the problem that they've got right now? And do it in a time frame that is less than, sometime in March and sometime in May we think we'll get caught up? Instead of fixing the broken conveyor belt system, they just shut it down and took it out. And went to a system that is exponentially slower and less efficient. Glad to have you along this morning. You can join the conversation on the C Spire text line. There is something happening on the other side of the world that we have not been paying enough attention to. And that is the buildup of American military assets in the Middle East region. As U.S. envoys continue to negotiate with Iran, the United States is reportedly conducting the largest air power buildup in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The United States has deployed both the USS Gerald Ford and the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike groups to the region, in addition to fighter jets, refueling tankers, and air defense systems. Top U.S. officials have publicly demanded that Iran end its uranium enrichment program, curb its ballistic missile program, and sever support for its proxy network. Tehran has sought to limit negotiations to just its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. On Thursday, I believe it was, of last week, President Trump stated that he will decide within 10 days whether to take military action against Iran. All of the pieces are in place. And the immediate reaction is, what about China and what about Russia? Really interesting story in the Wall Street Journal. The headline is, under Trump pressure, Iran finds its friends are of little help. Yes, there is an alliance with China. Yes, they sell a lot of oil to Russia. But China and Russia do not appear to be willing to stick their neck out militarily against the United States to take care of Iran, and it is putting Iran in a perilous position. We'll talk more about this and other things with you when we come back. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Want to know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Great to be with you. Chilly start to the day across the state of Mississippi. Northern part of the state dealing with 20s and low 30s to start the day. Central Mississippi in the 30s, going to warm up to the mid-upper 40s. And parts of South Mississippi going to be into the 50s as we go throughout the day. Wherever you are, may need a little extra hairspray today. Lance used a little extra hairspray this morning. He pulled out that Dapper Dan and got it really in place.
I'm a Dapper Dan man.
It's going to be windy.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a wind out of the north at 10 to 20 miles an hour across the entire state of Mississippi today.
It was brutal yesterday. I mean, once you get used to 70 and then you got 40s and 30-mile-an-hour gusts. Ooh, it was chilly, and it's no better today.
That's the thing. Like it's like mentally, are you ready for it?
Yeah.
You know, we were 10 days ago, Friday, opening day of the college baseball season. 70 and sunny across the state. And then as we got into the week, we were in the upper 70s in some spots. I wore shorts one day last week. And I mentioned this earlier this morning. I was over at Ballard Park in Tupelo for a soccer tournament yesterday. I had on, under my long pants, I had on the heavy-duty long johns, like the fleece-lined ones, and a full-on ski jacket with a liner in it with like a big heavy sweater underneath it. It was cold yesterday.
I'm a junkie for anything under like 55. I always have like the long johns on, or have the Sherpa lined whatever. Yeah. Once you get over that, I'm okay. But yeah, I don't have much of the Nordic in me left. I don't think, even though I may look it. Mm-hmm.
I was talking to one of the moms yesterday. I said, "You pulled out the full ski gear today. Had the ski pants on and everything." She's like, "I hate being cold." I said, "Good for you,
man.
Good decision." She said, "My family laughed at me when I pulled this out." She's like, "Who's laughing now?" All right, so on the Iran conversation, was this yesterday? Yeah, yesterday from Fox News. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff warned, I guess it was on Saturday, that Iran could be a week away from having industrial-grade bomb-making material. Witkoff said in an interview it's up to 60% weapons grade. They're probably a week away from having industrial-grade bomb-making material. Trump has talked about zero enrichment, that being the red line, and yet they're at 60%. Which, by the way, I talked to a nuclear political science expert several months back, and he said, hey, this 60, 70% enrichment that they've got to get to, that's for long-range warheads. If you're above 50% in enrichment, you've got the capacity and the ability for nuclear weapons, period. Now, maybe not the super long-range ones, but for shorter-range regional conflicts, absolutely, at 60% enrichment, they're already there. Witkoff told Fox News that the president is curious why Iran has not shifted course despite mounting U.S. pressure in the region. He said, quote, with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon. It's not really the way that it has, not really the way, though, that it is shaken out. Thomas, I think tongue-in-cheek, says, thought we handled all that last summer when we sent in the bombers and blew up all their nuclear weapons, or were we lied to?
I would say most big countries have a backup plan.
Yeah, I was going to say, Thomas, let's be a little bigger brain than that. Now, there was debate as to whether or not the bombing of that major nuclear facility in Iran set their nuclear program back months, years, or forever. It appears that setting it back months was the answer to that question. There was debate about whether or not the airstrike this summer actually obliterated, I think that was the president's word, the bomb-making facility. And it may very well have. But you're being awfully narrow-minded if you think that's the only place in all of the country, Iran, that they were working on their nuclear program. That was a message, a loud, expensive message that the United States sent, and clearly Iran didn't take the hint. And so here we are on the verge of what appears to be yet another strike against Iran. This one will be vastly different than B-2 stealth bombers flying halfway around the globe and dropping precision bombs. Thomas says it was presented as a complete success, if I remember correctly. It was a complete success in terms of that operation and the scope of that operation. But it was targeted. It wasn't countrywide. It was coordinated. But I don't think anybody was like, oh, this wipes out the entire nuclear program of Iran. Maybe I am misremembering the way that was presented. No different than, and obviously this is an extreme example, if a foreign country attacked a single military installation in the United States, regardless of the level of effectiveness, it would not knock our entire military offline. It might set us back for a few months, but we would reorganize and would be back up and running probably a lot faster than Iran has been. Iran is not nearly as sophisticated a country. It's not nearly as wealthy a country. But clearly it's not completely without resources. But I take you back to that Wall Street Journal story that I referenced before the break. If you're a Wall Street Journal subscriber, this is worth a read. There are actually a few stories at the Wall Street Journal right now that are really, really interesting. And they kind of tie together with this. One in particular about the network of shadow vessels that is transporting illicit oil from Iran to other places. But this story begins, Iran has sought for years to build closer military ties with China and Russia, but its powerful friends are proving reluctant to step forward as the regime faces the most acute U.S. threat to its survival in decades. Russia and Iran conducted small-scale joint naval training in the Gulf of Oman this past week, a show of force dwarfed by the U.S. firepower assembled in the region at sea and on land. An exercise involving ships from China, as well as Russia and Iran, is planned to take place soon in the Strait of Hormuz. That's according to Iranian state media. Take that for what it's worth. Iran has also sought to rebuild its missile stockpile, air defenses, and other capabilities with help from both China and Russia, after those elements in its military power were battered in a 12-day war against Israel and the United States in June. Here's the kicker. But Beijing and Moscow have shown little willingness to provide direct military assistance if President Trump does order attack on Iran. Former Israeli military intelligence official, who's now a senior researcher at a Tel Aviv-based institute, said, quote, they're not going to sacrifice their own interests for the Iranian regime. They are hoping the regime will not be toppled, but they are definitely not going to counter the U.S. militarily. Specifically with China, it's complicated. It's a little simpler equation with Russia. Whatever hope Russia has of ultimately ending its unsuccessful conflict with Ukraine probably hangs in the balance of them supporting Iran against the United States. That's kind of a 1 + 1 = 2 proposition. With China, it's way more complicated because while China depends on cheap oil that they're getting from Iran through illicit means, they also, this American-Chinese relationship is so complicated. China holds a significant amount of U.S. debt. They rely heavily on the United States buying their products. And going to war with the United States could put China's economy in a very perilous position. Neither the United States nor China want to go to war with each other. I mean, you can be as nationalist and as rah-rah patriotic as you want to be. That is bad for us, it is bad for them, and it is bad for the world. And regardless of what you think about Xi Jinping, he's not an idiot, and neither is Donald Trump. We're back with you. JT Mitchell from the SuperTalk News team joins us next.
From the Seabrook.
Inside track on Mississippi politics. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Monday morning with you. Thanks for joining us. It is that time of the day, that time of the week when JT Mitchell slides in. He is the news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi News team. Will give us an update on some of the stories from the weekend and what we are looking to this week ahead. JT, let's start with the legislature. It, I think, has been, and legislators that perhaps are listening right now be like, Richard, you have no idea what you are talking about. But it feels like it's been a quiet-ish couple of weeks in the Capitol. What's going on this week? I'm sure there is a deadline of some sort that we are approaching.
Well, you know, Richard, good morning, by the way. The session started off hot.
It did.
I mean, education, school choice, PERS. It was boom, boom, boom. And then you're right. It kind of slowed down, but that's natural. That happens. But this week, we're kind of moving away from your general bill conversation and more so into the appropriations and revenue conversation.
Okay.
So today is the deadline to request appropriation and revenue bills to be drafted. And then Wednesday is the deadline for original floor action on those bills, which means if it's a House appropriations bill, it has to be voted on, vice versa in the Senate. And then Thursday is the deadline for reconsideration and passage. So Wednesday and Thursday is really when you will see these bills come out of their original chambers. And I know that appropriations and budgetary items can come off as kind of boring, but let's not forget that we went to a special session over this stuff a year ago.
We did. I actually had a conversation with a legislator last week who said we're just kind of talking about process a little bit, and I asked the question like, why wait till the last minute on the budget? You know, why? Because traditionally, and there was so much conversation a year ago about the budget, about the speaker and his inaugural address when he was first put into describing it as an inaugural address, maybe is not, but his first address when he was placed as Speaker, Jason White, saying we're not waiting to the last minute to do the budget. And we know that the House kind of packed their bags up and went home before conference weekend last year, which traditionally is when the budget has been hashed out. It was pointed out to me that there were attempts on the Senate side to begin that negotiation process on the budget long before that final weekend, and there was maybe a limited interest at best in negotiating some of those things. But the larger point, sorry, I just kind of got off in the weeds there. The larger point is some of it you have to wait until the end, because if you appropriate dollars before you go through all of the appropriations bills and all of the things that require money, then you've either got to go back and fix it or that stuff doesn't get funded that you vote on for that particular year.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think a lot of lawmakers out there listening are probably saying, preach, Richard. But yeah, last year, I mean, it is the status quo to wait until the end. It just has always been that way. And House Speaker Jason White, you remember, he was like, we're not going to wait for this rushed, blurry-eyed weekend, eyes glazed over, just staying up until midnight to get this done. But on the other side of the coin, like you said, some stuff has to wait. So you have
there's a reason that it has traditionally been at the end.
Yeah, and given, and I haven't tracked the pattern from last year to this year, but I have noticed that both the House and Senate have advanced some appropriations bills already. I mean, you and I, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the MEMA funding, given that was a little bit different of a situation, considering we had the worst winter storm in over 3 decades. But the House passed an education funding measure last week. Just off the top of my head, the Senate has done some stuff for the Secretary of State, the Department of Revenue, and stuff like that. So I have seen appropriations actions be taken, but I cannot sit here and tell you how close they are to a full budget.
Yeah. What about the cyber attack on UMMC? We got that news on Thursday of last week. You and the SuperTalk Mississippi team, SuperTalk Mississippi News team reported over the weekend that UMMC outpatient clinics across the state were going to be closed today and tomorrow. All elective procedures have been canceled for today and tomorrow as well. What do we know at this point?
We know it's still an ongoing situation. I know that's kind of cursory, but, this happened Thursday morning. You and I were texting about it. We got word from, I got word after you texted me from some students and patients and employees and other sources that stuff just wasn't working. Websites, some phone lines, email, etc. They couldn't even access the patient records. That's concerning, right? And then a couple hours later, UMC did confirm that all of that we heard was because of this cyber attack. They brought in the FBI, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, other local and federal law enforcement agencies, but also experts in cyber attacks, because this isn't your typical crime. I know you know that, but it's easier to find a murderer than it is somebody who is in the ransomware business. I mean, I was looking at some numbers over the weekend. It is something like less than 5% of cyber criminals get caught and brought to justice. That number is dramatically lower when you talk about ransomware specifically. But yeah, the update is that today and tomorrow, all clinics, 35 statewide, will be closed. And elective procedures are once again canceled, will be rescheduled. But the hospital services in Jackson, Madison County, Holmes County, and Grenada will keep operating via pen and paper.
Programming note for you, we are scheduled to visit with Dr. Luann Woodward and Dr. Alan Jones tomorrow morning. That is at 7:20 when hopefully that still works for their schedules. Obviously a lot on their plates right now, but hope to be able to get a little more information out to you about what's going on with this. I did know in your story that you referenced, and I guess it was something that UMMC said, was that they had been in communication with the cyber criminal.
Yes, and
the
so
hacker, I guess is the way to describe it.
The hacker is a good word, and so some inside journalism baseball here. That comment that the hackers have been in contact with UMC tells me it's ransomware. UMC, as far as I know, has not used the terminology ransomware, but hackers more than likely would not contact you unless they wanted something. And that's where we're at. I've seen other sources have called it ransomware, Associated Press being one of them. But I want to give Dr. Luann Woodward credit. And for the people out there who don't know who she is, she's the vice chancellor and the dean at UMC. She is the top of the top. And she said during that press conference that, I know this is scary, and I'm paraphrasing, I know this is scary, but we are not so far beyond the medical field when it was based on pen and paper as you might think. Yes, we live in a technology-oriented world now, but we can still provide these essential services, and we can still do it exceptionally. And that's kind of the message she's been preaching as her and her teams work with the local and federal LEOs to get this figured out and to hopefully catch the criminal and or criminals behind this widespread cyber attack. UMC is one of the largest healthcare providers in the state.
EMRs are what we're talking about, electronic medical records, digital versions of the paper copies that we used to see. I mean, you remember a doctor used to come into the room and they would write things on a chart as they were talking. Now they come in with a laptop and they type away. So not that long ago where paper and pen were the order of the day.
Oh, it's not. I mean, you and I both remember when it was paper pen. Now it's as soon as they come in, they log in and take everything down.
Yeah. and roll a big computer in on the cart. That's what nurses do a lot of the time. We got mixed messaging yesterday from the Department of Homeland Security. It started out that TSA PreCheck and Global Entry were going to be shut down because of the partial government shutdown, the lack of funding for DHS. Then there was an update that, PreCheck is still going to be on board. I did see one person point out online that these are subscription-based services. So if you're paying for a subscription to a service, that should cover at least a lot of the funding for it. But a mess at airports across the country.
You know, as somebody who has both PreCheck and Global Entry, I probably should have thought about that. That's like my Netflix subscription going down. I'm paying you the money to do it, right?
Fix it.
But yeah, so this partial government shutdown where everything is figured out. 11 of 12 appropriations bills, except for DHS, has started to seep down to the airports. You said that PreCheck is still going. That was not initially what we heard yesterday, but there was an abrupt reverse from DHS. Global Entry is down. Airports across the state and nation are telling people just to get there early, get ready for whatever impacts we have now and whatever impacts may come about.
We have all these different travel seasons, so much of them around Thanksgiving and Christmas. But when you get into the spring, you get into a massive number of spring break travelers that could wreak havoc on the airports if they don't get that figured out. Back with JT after this.
Keeping Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I'm sure there are people that think that this is below the office of the President of the United States, but if you have not seen the AI-generated Donald Trump video on skates facing Team Canada for gold medal in the Olympics, you are missing out. And if it doesn't bring a smile to your face, regardless of how you feel about the President, I don't think I can help you. I don't think we can be friends. Please tell me you've seen it, JT.
I've not.
I've
been too busy in the newsroom, Richard.
You got to find this. Trump in a navy blue suit with a red tie on skates, stick in hand, chasing the puck, dropping his gloves and fighting with the Canadians on the ice. This is top shelf AI stuff.
Now, we know he can play golf. Do you think he can actually skate?
I'm going to go with no.
I'm a no, but maybe if he can skate, not very well.
Wallman Rink in Central Park, now they have since divested of it, but that was done by the Trump companies. When they did the redo of the ice rink and made it profitable, and I don't know how it wouldn't be profitable with what they charge to ice skate in Central Park, but nevertheless. So maybe
so, but he also did Trump vodka, and he says he doesn't drink.
That's a good point. We digress.
The news of the day.
One of your missions in life is to not let election days sneak up on us, and here we are, 15 days away from primary elections in Mississippi.
Do you have a recording of me from a couple election cycles ago or any of the past election cycles we can just play?
Probably somewhere.
PSAs?
JT wants you to vote.
That's right. Voter turnout is god-awful. It really is. I mean, we live in a state where it's somewhere between 9 and 13%, if I had to guess. That's bad. That is really bad. A lot of times you can win elections if you have a lot of friends and get them to go vote. That's how bad the turnout is.
If I remember correctly, about 1.8 million registered voters in the state of Mississippi, and if you're saying 10%, that's 180,000 votes statewide.
Yeah.
No bueno.
No bueno. And
that's non-presidential elections.
Yeah, and then when you go to individual municipalities or individual districts, which will be the case in this upcoming midterm cycle, it's even lower. Now, everybody who's listening right now, unless you're under 18, and everybody who's listening right now who has a friend over 18 and is an eligible voter can vote 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, we have congressional primaries in all 4 House districts. And then, of course, in the U.S. Senate seat race currently held by Cindy Hyde-Smith. And, just about all of them are contested on the primary side. Senator Hyde-Smith has a Republican running against her, Sarah Adlaka. A few Democrats there. House district, you have a contest in House District 1, a contested Democratic primary. House District 2, contested on both sides. House District 3, not contested. House District 4, contested on both sides. There is reason to vote.
District 1, Democrat side, Kelvin Buck, Cliff Johnson. On the Democrat side, Trent Kelly unopposed in the primary. District 2, Benny Thompson, Evan Turnage, Purtis Williams in the Democrat primary, Ron Eller and Kevin Wilson in the Republican primary. As JT said, not a contested primary in District 3, and then in District 4, on the Democrat side, Paul Blackman, Ryan Grover, Jeffrey Hulam, and on the Republican side, Mike Ezell, the incumbent, facing Sawyer Walters in the primary.
That being said, even if you live in District 3, you may have a local judicial seat. I don't know. Go to y'allvote.ms, plug in your address, and find out if you have an election to vote in. I'm guessing you do. In general, get out and vote. 2 weeks from tomorrow, polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you can't make it with a real reason not to make it, you can vote early. Go do it. I always say, Richard, if you don't vote, you can't complain, and I like to complain sometimes.
There you go. You also have some appellate court races that are going to be on the ballot. Looks like only District 1 where you've got a contested position there, but you can still vote. We talk college baseball. What a weekend for Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Southern Miss. A combined 9-0 Ole Miss and State hosting series, and Southern Miss going down to Round Rock and getting it done.
Hey, we're looking pretty good on all fronts. Undefeated records, Ole Miss and State, and then Southern Miss. I mean, yeah, they went undefeated over the weekend, but the win over number 11 Oregon State, and it wasn't even that close. I am very pleased so far and very optimistic, cautiously optimistic, I should say, that we will have somebody in Omaha a few months from now.
Talked about it during our news headlines this morning. The FBA program, the Farmer Bridge Assistant Program, that's $11 billion in one-time payments, starts today for the enrollment period, and it goes through mid-April.
If you are a struggling farmer in this state, which I know 10% roughly of people out there are, you have a chance to get some federal funds. And the crazy part about it is if you apply today, according to Secretary Brooke Rollins, you could get a payment in your bank account as early as 5 days from now.
If you've got questions about how to apply, go to your FSA office, the Farm Service Administration office. JT, thanks as always.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Lance.
Hope you have a great day. For Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. Thank you for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross. We'll do it again tomorrow, just after 6 o'clock. Have a great day.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.